they were saying, we're pulling up to these houses and I'm handing this guy or this lady a $200,000 estimate. And I'm rolling up in just an unmarked white van. He said, it's hard to get these people to trust us, even though they've seen our work, even though, we've showed the pictures of other stuff we've done. It's just like a legitimacy builder. And we wrapped there were 2 vans that they had. And he said, dude, just pulling up to these places and interacting with clients makes us so much more confident.
Welcome to the Cincinnati Business Podcast, where we elevate the voices of business owners, nonprofits, and subject matter experts across the greater Cincinnati area. And brought to you by the Cincinnati Podcast Studio. Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to the Cincinnati Business Podcast. I've got a large group of people here today, which I'm excited about. So we got a lot of diversity of voices, but we're going to be talking about the world of large format printing and how advertising and marketing is starting to go. So we've got the team from Crux Roadboardz here. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Oh, man, you guys spoke that in unison. That was kind of scary.
We did rehearse that.
You did. Well, so I'm kind of curious for the people who are uninitiated, don't know anything about you guys. What is the work that you guys do, and what are your roles inside of the organization?
Okay, so what we do large format printing, primarily wraps, car wraps, truck wraps, wall murals, floor graphics, window graphics. We also do smaller printing as well, stickers for labels, for industrial machines, things like that. We do banners, we do signage. So it's sort of a full service, large format graphics and signage company.
Okay.
Our roles: I am the president. Mike here is our director of sales, Mr. Mike Doyle, and then my lovely sister Krista is the vice president of marketing and sales. So Krista and I are co-owners of the company.
Awesome. Okay.
Along with actually our other brother, who's a silent partner. Who's
also silent on the show. I get it.
Exactly.
I love it.
Correct.
Okay, so before we get into all the kind of things that you guys do, I'd love to kind of know what brought you here, like what brought you guys to eventually starting Crux. Because I'm assuming that this wasn't the first thing that you guys ever did for a career.
Yeah, so I'll take that one too. So my dad and I started the company in 2004. So prior to that, I had graduated from business school 2002, and I worked at an advertising agency here in town for a couple years. It had always been a dream of mine and a dream of really our family to start a business together. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. He started 3 different companies. My dad ran one of those for several years before selling it in the late 90s. So after I worked for a couple years at this advertising agency, my dad owned a small trailer leasing company at the time. So the way it all started is I went to work with him. We were leasing out 53-foot, 48-foot semi-trailers for over-the-road hauling and or storage. And we were trying to figure out ways to grow that business. So one of the ways that we did that was we said, when we rent out, say, 30 trailers to GE, as a value add, let's put their logo on the side of the trailers as well. So essentially we were buying printed adhesive logos from another printer here in town, and we were sticking them on the trailers as a value add to our customers. So that got to a point where we were buying so many logos, so many stickers from this other company that we decided, why don't we just buy our own printer so we can start doing this ourselves? And that's really the where everything started. That company was called RoadBoards. That's what we named it.
Okay.
That was in 2004, 2010. Eventually, I'm jumping ahead, but eventually my dad stayed in the trailer leasing business, and I sort of branched out and was doing the decals and the graphics business by myself. Hired on a couple people to help. We grew it a little bit, and then in 2010, we bought one of our competitors, which was another small company at the time called Crux. That's where the name comes from. So we sort of inherited their employees. We moved into their location because it was a much better fit for what we were doing. And that's how we started.
Okay. So then, Krista, how did you get roped into working with your brother?
So when Adam and my dad started in 2004, I was a junior in college, living in Athens, Georgia, at the University of Georgia. So I graduated in 2005, moved to Chicago for 2 years, went to creative portfolio school.
Oh, fun.
Also was in the advertising world. And then I moved, worked at an ad agency in Chicago for a couple years. Then I moved back south to Atlanta and worked in Atlanta for a couple more years. And then I moved home. I was working at Ernst & Young and living actually at the banks when the banks had first opened.
Oh, cool.
And I was at Ernst & Young for about, let's see, my timing is right here. It was 2012. I had been at Ernst & Young for about 3 years. And I liked a lot about it, but I also realized corporate America was a grind and not really something. I was sort of at a point where I could either commit to staying there and get an MBA at night, which was what it had become clear to me was what I was going to need to do in order to sort of go to the next level on our team, which I was on the Procter & Gamble team in business development, or not go that route. And Adam came over one night and we were having a couple beers, talking about business. And he said, we really need a salesperson. And I said, I really hate corporate America. And he was like, do you want to come work with me? And I said, yes, absolutely. And I put in my 2 weeks the next morning.
Wow.
At Ernst & Young and moved over.
No hesitation.
No hesitation at all.
Man.
And it had always kind of been, I think, we had talked about it over the years. Adam and I have always been really close, as brother, sister. We've always gotten along really well. Mm-hmm. And it was just the right timing. It had kind of been, there was never any pressure. It was never like, set in stone, something that was going to happen, but it was just kind of at the right timing for both of us that they needed a salesperson and I was at this point in my life and career, and it was just the perfect timing. So
I believe they call that kismet.
It was kismet.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I had no sales experience, so it was definitely a big learning curve. And we kind of actually, we started doing the billboard business, which I forgot about.
That's what you were doing.
That's what I started doing initially.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about that. What was that?
So initially, what we started doing is, I forget, had you and Dad already started with Billboard Connection? Was that already an idea with you guys?
I think he was looking into it. It was on the radar, but we didn't start it until you came along.
Okay.
Until you were on board.
So there was a franchise company called Billboard Connection, and our dad was still pretty actively engaged at the time in ideas and how to help grow.
How to grow it, yeah.
Yeah. And so he had been in contact with this franchise owner and kind of presented this idea of beginning this franchise Billboard Connection with the idea of if I sold billboards, the billboard spaces, then Crux could print the actual billboards.
Okay.
And we learned pretty quickly that was not really the way it worked because Norton and Lamar, the companies who own the billboards, they either print or they either print in-house or they outsource the printing to their own printers. Yeah. And it's kind of a different, those billboards are so huge. It's a different printing capacity than we had at the time.
Yeah.
So that part of it didn't really work out, but I learned a lot about sales and I learned a lot about the value add that vehicle graphics and vehicle wraps provide versus billboards. Because a billboard is so expensive for such a limited amount of time. Yeah. A billboard on 71 or 75, a customer's paying $5,000 to $6,000 a month.
And that was then.
And that was then.
Yeah, that was years ago. So.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was
man.
a decade ago. Versus now, a full wrap on a vehicle might be $4,500, to $5,500.
And last for years.
Will last for
Right.
up to 10 years.
Yeah.
So, so I learned a lot, and it was a big jump and a big learning curve and a big help with sales training. But ultimately, after a few years doing that, realized this isn't really the right fit for what we're trying to do. And we decided to sell that and move me over full time to Crux.
That makes sense. It feels like the billboard industry is, even from an outsider, it feels like there's like, in Cincinnati, there's like 2 people that do it. And it's like, there's no way to get into it almost. Like, so I'm impressed that you guys actually honestly ran that as long as you did, because that sounds like it was difficult.
It was tough. It was a tough business. If you don't own the space, if you don't own the boards, you're really behind the 8 ball there. And that was ultimately what we came to realize.
Yeah, but it's interesting. We made a couple of really Omnifiber actually as a customer we still work with who I met doing billboards because they reached out about wanting to do some billboards, and years later he called my cell phone and said, "Hey, we started this." It was for, at the time, an Element massage studio. And then he randomly started Omnifiber, a telecommunications company, and now we do all of their fleets, their entire fleet of vehicles, and they're growing exponentially. Yeah, so there's been some really cool, takeaways. There's been some cool
crossover. Yeah, interesting
benefits.
Okay. So, Mike, then when did you join the team?
Yeah, I'm the new guy. So I've only been, I guess, about a year and a half. When I started, I was in corporate America before this, but I worked in retail. So I was a manager over at Lowe's. Before that, I had a bunch of various sales jobs. I worked in the nonprofit sector for about 4 years. In my 20s, that was interesting. So we were doing face-to-face fundraising for nonprofits, big nonprofits like the Red Cross, Children International.
That's hard work, though.
Very, very hard work. I lived in Boston at the time. That's where I went to school. So if you go all the way back, I grew up in Pennsylvania. When I went to college, I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston and studied guitar and songwriting and a bunch of stuff I just do for fun now. But I'm still paying the student loans.
Of course.
Yeah. So, and then, I think I had had a bunch of sales jobs and sales and management kind of experience, but I think I just never really found the right company, a place that kind of allowed me to grow with them and put some trust in me, allowed me to have ideas and actually run with them.
Yeah. Like the idea of showing up on a podcast.
Like the idea of showing up on a podcast. So yeah, when I first was trying to decided I wanted to look for another job, I started just sort of applying to everything. And Krista actually reached out to me. I guess I had been active enough on Indeed that something alerted you of me or my resume, and I got a letter or an email, and I was sort of like, what is this company? Because I didn't recognize the name, and I was like, I don't know if I responded right away. I don't remember exactly, but then when I came in for an interview and got to actually meet them and see the space, and meet some of the people that worked there, I was like, oh wow, I think I kind of found what I'd been missing in terms of. Like, it just felt like it clicked. And that was the point at which I think I was like, oh, wow, I really hope they hire me. So I got really lucky with that. And, from there, I think, they needed another salesperson to come in and, take some of the load off of them because they're, running a business and being the main salespeople. And so that makes it really hard for them to actually spend any time on the business, and growing the processes and all that stuff. So I think they needed somebody to come in and take some new clients. I don't know how much they expected me to go out and really try and drum up new business. But, I'm the type of person that I just, if I think something's fun, I just want to run with it. And I just found the whole industry of signage and wraps really, really interesting. I knew nothing, like absolutely nothing. Yeah. So like everything I know is from them and from our production people and our design people, our installers. That's cool. I'm still learning every day, and there's just like a lot to learn.
Yeah.
But it's been a really, really great experience. And I really couldn't ask for a better like place to show up every day, because it's very creative. Like I get to work with our designers and clients and trying to help find a vision for them. And it's just what I started to realize about what we do, is that it is kind of like, how important what we do is to the general public. It's sort of like trying to explain what water is to a fish, right? There is signage and graphics around us all the time. Without it, we don't know what road to get off of. We don't know what building to walk up to. We don't know what room number until you start to actually produce this stuff and like, and walk into a completely blank space and go, okay, we're going to need X, Y, Z. You know what I mean? So that 100%. People know where they're going, know what it, and even, you get beyond that into almost interior design type stuff of like, well, what is this space used for? Are your clients going to be walking in here? Is this just your employees? What do you want them to feel? You know what I mean? Yeah. Because you can literally you can transform a space. You can transform a vehicle with graphics. So, I mean, that is been like really, really engaging for me. And these guys have just been great and given me like a ton of resources, education, training. It's been amazing. So I can't speak highly enough of you guys.
I love it.
Love you, bro.
That was a love fest there. I love it. So then, Adam, tell me, when was it that, what year was it that you guys became your own entity, not part of your dad's company anymore?
So it was 04, right?
04.
It was right from the outset. After I went to work there for doing the trailers with him. No, it wasn't 04. So it was probably a year after that. Okay. So it was probably summer of 05 is when we started the company officially, incorporated.
Yeah. Okay. So then here you are, you're working on trailers, and trailers in relative simplicity compared to like wrapping a vehicle, like you got a flat surface that you're working on.
Just a box on wheels.
Just box on wheels. So when did all of a sudden you start to say, what if I started working on vehicles a little bit more? When did that transition happen?
Oh, it wasn't long after we started, because there's once you know that you can do large, I'm just gonna simplify it, right? Large stickers on vehicles. Yeah. Once you know that you can do that, then all of a sudden you start to realize that, wow, if you have the right vehicle template, right? If you have the right measurements, and there's services out there where you can buy templates for every single vehicle, not trailers and not,
like non-standard.
But for a Chevy Equinox, a 2019 Chevy Equinox, you can find that template, right? And we have subscription to these services. Once you do that, and you have a designer who knows what he or she is doing, then you're off and running, because they can place. You got door handles, you got the badging where it says Equinox, you got the wheel wells. They can manipulate that and make it work on that vehicle type. And then it's just a matter of setting it up and printing it. So it wasn't, to answer your question, it was not long after.
Interesting. Okay. And so that was then just a natural jump for what was RoadBoards at the time.
Yep. Yeah, it really was. It really was.
So then you're moving along, and when did you recognize that you by yourself, this was just too much? Like, did you hire employees into the organization really quickly?
Yeah, because I'm not a designer, so I don't know how to do Photoshop. I don't know how to do Illustrator. I still don't. And so customers would send us art files, right? We plug them into the system to print, and it was pretty quick that I realized that I did not know how to set these up properly into the RIP system for print. So I was using a freelance designer to help me with the pre-press part of it at that point. It was just paying him an hourly. And it wasn't long at all before I realized I need somebody who's a designer, who's an art person to help me with this, because I can do the sales, I can do the billing, I can do the admin and all that. I can talk to customers all day, but and I can run the printer and I can cut the vinyl off when it's done and I can run it through the laminator, but I can't do all that stuff.
So specialized.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Even just what I've learned from them, from the designers, is like, because they work with other designers all the time.
Yeah.
But if it's a designer that doesn't work in large format print,
yeah.
I mean, the level of detail that they have to go into, you know, because you could create a graphic and if you're printing it out or it's just going on a website or something, you can have little imperfections in it.
Yeah.
You go ahead and you blow that up to 10 feet tall and those little imperfections are huge.
Yeah.
So our designers really have to be very, very skilled at like cleaning up art that they get or even stuff that they create. It's like large format print design production design is very, very specified, like specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then it seems like you guys as an organization start to grow pretty rapidly. Like there were probably some downturns in there in amongst the stuff. Cause you also, here it is 2004, 2005, you guys are heading right up to the economic crisis.
Yeah.
And how did you guys survive that? How did that work for you guys?
Yeah, there were some lean times early on. There
Yeah.
were some lean times. So we had an influx of capital from we got a bank loan. My dad kicked in a little bit of cash. I kicked in a little bit of cash. And then early on, it was crazy. There was a customer that found our website because large format printing at that time was not nearly as well known of a thing as it is now. I mean, the industry really is still pretty young. You know, the technology, it used to be that you would have to cut a single color film and then mount another single color film over top of that.
Oh my.
And then maybe another if you wanted to get a lot of colors, right? Digital printing, especially large format digital printing, was still very, very green at that point, very new.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a company that found us out of New York that found us online, called the office one day and said, I've got 100 box trucks that I need to get wrapped. That was really the first huge job that we did. And that kickstarted a lot for us because then it was crazy that they were in New York, but then we had, number one, we had a lot of experience with all of a sudden a huge volume of printing. And number two, we knew shortly after that, we learned how to manage the whole process of printing, shipping, finding installers in other places. We were able to use that to pitch to local customers and regional customers, like, this is what we can do. And so that was a big thing. And then there was another salesperson that we had early on named Bob Steele, who was really pounding the pavement around Cincinnati, got us involved with 3 or 4 big customers. FinCorp was one of them, who we still do a ton of work for. 2 or 3 like that really, and he's not with the company anymore, obviously, but that really kickstarted our efforts and just allowed us to kind of get some momentum, get some more steady income. We were doing a lot at the time for Metro Bus downtown, which is obviously a huge customer. They have 400 buses. So that was one that we bid super low just to get the business, just to keep something steady coming in. We still do some work for them, but the per square foot price that you got to be at to compete for that kind of work. At that time, we were like, yeah, let's do it. Now it's not really feasible for us. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah, it was a combination of things at the same time. An influx of capital, some loans, and then some big customers that hit for us early, and we were able to grow.
And then the advent of more digital printing really helped grow your company in a big way.
Absolutely. It became more of a known thing. You know, vehicle wraps became a lot more normalized, and I think customers started to realize the value of vehicle wraps too at that point. So it was good timing.
I have a question, even though I'm not the interviewer. Just because I want to know, when you got that order for 100 box trucks, was that like a poppin' champagne moment, or was that like a have a nervous breakdown moment?
Yeah, both. It was both. It was both. I was freaking out. Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That was HLA. That's who that was. So we still do some work for them too, but they don't do 100 at a time anymore. But yeah, I flew up there to meet them, and I wined them and dined them and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Man, I was a kid. I didn't know what I was doing.
It worked.
So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
So
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, and I wanted to bring up too, because just thinking about those days, that was thinking about who was there with you. It was like, was that Herbie, Joe Pruitt, Lori?
No, this was before them.
Okay.
This was before them. This was before Crux. So this was like 06, 07.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I was going to bring up the point that a lot of the people who are still with us today were with you even before I was there.
Yeah.
We have so many employees who really Adam started with, who are
That's
still
cool.
with us today, which is really cool. Yeah.
Well, that was actually something you guys talked about before we got on camera. Is you mentioned that your company culture is a really big deal to you, and I'm curious, like, what are some of the tenets of that for you guys, and why do you think you've held on to employees so long?
Krista?
Yeah. I'd love to take that one.
You both like whip panned to him, so I was like, "Is that what is this the guy?"
Well, I think it starts, at the top. I think the culture starts at the top with Adam, and when I came on board right at the beginning of when I came on board, and our dad was still pretty heavily involved and just top level coming up with ideas. One of the things that he brought to the table was this idea of the E-Myth. Have you heard of the E-Myth?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
So he had us read the E-Myth. Do you know what the E-Myth is?
No, I've never heard of it.
I think you would really like the E-Myth.
It's literally sitting on the bookshelf right behind you there.
Oh, wow.
How about that?
is.
It stands for the E is the entrepreneurial myth.
Okay.
And so at the time, we read the book, and then we did this consulting process with an E-Myth coach.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the processes that you have to do is you have to write your primary aim. And one of the things is you have to basically boil down what you want, like what's most important to you. And running, why do you want to run this business? How do you want to run this business? What do you want the culture of the business to be? And for Adam, one of the very most important things was that it's a fun culture, that people enjoy coming to work every day, sort of what Mike was saying, that it's a culture where people feel good coming into the office. They enjoy it. They like what they do. And it's also, at the end of the day, we're making stickers. We're not curing cancer here. It's not life or death. And so I think he has created that culture, and I think people feel that. And I think that it's a healthy culture where people enjoy coming in. People show up at 8, they leave at 5, and people have their own accountability, and people take a lot of pride in what they're doing. And I think because of that, it's an environment where people like working, people feel good about what they do, and people stay. So, and it's also a very family friendly environment.
Yeah.
People, most of the employees have kids. So at any given number of snow days, there's kids, a few kids scattered around
building.
Conference rooms.
Turns into a daycare for a
which is not, I don't know how much Adam loves that, but it happens.
Kids on rollerblades.
Yeah, those rollerblades.
Yeah.
Occasionally there's a dog,
Yeah.
roaming the halls.
So one of the hardest parts about podcasting is the moment you stop talking. I mean, think about it. The majority of the work that you probably put into creating a podcast is in the editing phase. So what if you didn't have to do the editing phase? Here at the Cincinnati Podcast Studio, we help you just come in and talk. We do all the rest. We have the cameras, we have the microphones, we have the lights, and then we have the editing tools to create the perfect content out of your podcast. Not only do you get the full podcast in video and audio, you also get short form content that you can use across all of your pages in social media. So if you want to learn more, go to CincinnatiPodcastStudio.com/tour to learn more and schedule your tour with us today. Well then, Adam, I would ask you then, what was your biggest mistake you made in your culture setting that you went after? Because I think that's a lot of our listeners probably struggle with culture. Like culture is a big part of how businesses run.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like what was the mistake that you had that you learned a lot from?
Oh boy. I think what I learned throughout the years with the people that we've hired is that I needed to do a better job of knowing when to cut people loose that were not a right fit for the culture. I tend to be a little bit too nice and a little bit too forgiving with our people, that that work for us, because we've had. I was just looking at the other day the history of the employees that we've had, and there have been earlier on. I think we've gotten better at it, but earlier on there were a handful of folks that would come in that worked for us in the production department or in the install department who, we're not the right fit for who we are in terms of, we really try to have a positive energy, a positive vibe around there all the time, because there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be printing screw ups, and there's going to be install mess ups, and there's going to be customers that are a pain in the what. And people bring their problems in from home as well, whether it's family problems, whether it's relationship problems, whatever. And everybody has bad days, but there's also some people that just, for whatever reason, aren't positive people, and they never will be. And that's their own issue, and they got to figure that out. And I've always tried to preach, don't bring that stuff into this setting, from 8 to 5, let's be positive. Let's have fun. Let's do our very best for our customers. And then you go home and you deal with your problems. But there were some folks earlier on that I think hurt the culture, and that we may have lost a couple of good people because we kept giving these other folks chances, more chances than we should have. So we implemented a 90-day trial policy for all employees, where we don't, we sort of look at our folks a little bit closer early on and determine whether or not they're the right fit before we really welcome them to the company, so to speak. So the first 90 days, you don't have the PTO, you don't have the insurance, you don't have some of the other perks, the 401k. Once the 90 days hits, everything's good. They're happy with us, we're happy with them. Then all those benefits kick in. But we have found that we really don't need 90 days. In most cases, a lot quicker than that. But yeah, that's the short answer to your question. It's just doing a better job of evaluating our team members after we bring them in, and being a little bit more diligent about not settling for people just because we need people. Well, we need the right people.
That's very wise, and I've started to hear that from more and more people that I've interviewed. It's like be ready to let people go if they are not a culture fit.
Right. What is inevitable should be immediate.
Yes.
Don't waste your time with this.
Yeah. I've been in many situations before in other organizations where it's like we saw it coming from months away, and it just didn't happen until months and months and months later. And it's like, oh, yep, we knew that was coming.
Right. Yep.
Like it's a disservice to both parties too.
Exactly.
It's like, move on.
Yeah. Okay, that's super interesting. But we haven't really even talked about like why vehicle reps. So let's get into that. Like, I'm curious, like that there is a bit of upfront expense for something like that. So I'm curious, what are you, maybe like you guys as salespeople, what do you tell people? Why is this valuable for somebody to invest in?
Go ahead, Mike.
Run with it.
Sales
All
guy.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the biggest thing for companies that are getting vehicle graphics, there's generally a couple of types of companies. The ones that don't, they just want like the most basic marking, and a DOT number, just what is required, because they're not really thinking of it as an advertising tool. It's more, they want to look like a legit company when they show up to someone's house or whatever to do some work. And that's absolutely acceptable. We're not trying to force anybody to spend money they don't want to spend. But I think, when you start looking at the statistics of studies that companies like 3M is, we utilize a lot of 3M products because they're really high quality and it allows us to warranty them. They do a lot of studies into this stuff, so into outdoor printing, and a lot of that applies to any kind of advertisement that's going outside, but especially on vehicle graphics, is basically, it's one of the highest ROI things you can invest in as a company in terms of not just raw impressions. They've found between 30 and 70,000 people a day will see a graphic on a vehicle if that vehicle's out on the road all day. So that's, multiply that out, by a year, like Krista was talking about, the price of one billboard for 1 month, you can get 2 vehicles wrapped and they're going to last 5 to 10 years with that graphic. And you're talking about 30 to 70,000 people a day. So you're talking a lot of just raw number people are seeing it. But I think one of the biggest things is, it builds trust. We did a job for Assured Construction as one of our clients, and they are a relatively new company, but they do construction in the east end of Cincinnati area. And they were saying, we're pulling up to these houses and I'm handing this guy or this lady a $200,000 estimate. And I'm rolling up in just an unmarked white van. He said, it's hard to get these people to trust us, even though they've seen our work, even though, we've showed the pictures of other stuff we've done. It's just like a legitimacy builder. And we wrapped there are 2 vans that they had. And he said, dude, just pulling up to these places and interacting with clients makes us so much more confident, because we're walking and going, yeah, look at our nicely branded. They did end up getting full wraps on their vehicles. So it's the raw numbers. It's the way it makes your company appear, your perception to your clients. But I think one of the best things to think about is, building name recognition in your local market, because the same vans you will see in the same areas all the time, because that's their service area. So your customers are going to see your vans over and over and over, week after week. And it's that repetition that normally you have to just like brute force pay money for. Every ad on a TV or radio, you have to pay for that time. A vehicle graphic, you invest one time and you're getting that name recognition. You're building that trust with your customers in your local area. And it really is, just like soup to nuts, one of the best things you can invest in terms of, hey, let's get our name out there, let's legitimize our company, and let's make sure the people that we're trying to market to see us over and over and over again and trust us. So I think that is why it's such an effective method and why the market's growing.
Do you see people coming back then? Are most of your customers repeat customers? Because they see the value pretty easily?
Yeah, absolutely. Without question. I mean, repeat customers and referrals are 95% of our business. Yeah. We do some Google stuff, but we don't do any other advertising. It's repeat customers and referrals. Absolutely.
Huh. Well, that's really interesting. I never really thought about it from that perspective. So I would assume then that what you guys primarily work with then is logistics and service-based organizations. Is that correct?
Yeah. We do a ton of service, HVAC companies, plumbing companies, et cetera. We also do a whole lot of police and fire that you might not think of. But a lot of ambulances, police cars, cruisers,
fire engines,
a lot of reflective stuff,
which is its own specialized kind of thing, like even down to the install, right? Like, not everybody that can stick vinyl like normal graphics to a vehicle will be good at reflective, because it's such a different thing. Like, we have one specialist who's really, they can all do it, but he's the guy that
interesting.
Joe Pruitt.
Shout out
to Joe.
Shout out Joe.
Yeah, that's so interesting, huh? Now, I would assume when you're dealing with first responder type vehicles, those are more decal work. You're not like usually wrapping the full vehicles, right?
Correct. We've done some wraps. There's folks who call. We did one for Ellesmere. They called. The only ambulance they could get was white they wanted it to be red. So we wrapped the whole thing red, and then we put the striping over top of the red. So that occasionally happens. We've done some big wraps for Children's Hospital for their ambulances.
Wow.
We completely redid their whole fleet when they got a new logo. But a part of that was their ambulances, and they're really, really sharp looking.
They look great.
They're a full reflective wrap. So those are a big project, because like Mike said, wrapping with reflective film, it's a thicker film. The properties of it, especially if it's not an air release film, which most of the stuff is nowadays, but it's just a lot harder to lay down, heat down, stretch down without having bruising or without having color issues.
Well, especially because of the material inside of there is like specially angled to reflect and do all that sort of stuff.
It's got glass particles, like glass dust in it, basically.
That makes sense.
And when it gets pulled up, that all gets rearranged, and that's what you end up with bruising. Normal graphic vinyl, we usually print to the stuff that we just generally use. Yeah, they can stick it down. If it's not right, pull it back up. They can do that 10 times.
Yeah.
And as long as they heat it the last time, it's going to stay.
Yeah.
But you only get one shot with reflective. And it's way more expensive too. So it's like, it's more high stakes, I guess.
For sure.
High stakes stickers.
Yeah. So then I'm curious, like, so you guys do vehicles, you do smaller scale stuff like stickers for machinery, like other organizations. Do you guys do anything like wall decal work or anything like that for like interiors of office buildings, that sort of stuff? Is that also something you guys do?
Absolutely. Yeah. The museum center is one of our biggest customers. So we just did a Julia Child exhibit for them. So we did all the walls in their exhibit.
Whoa.
Interior walls. We do a lot of office spaces around town.
Just wrap that whole VR room.
Yep.
That was a cool one.
Yep.
That was walls and floor of like a whole, how many square feet was that place? It was pretty big.
Boy, yeah.
Because they need those like specific patterns to show up so the cameras recognize everything, right? Like,
Right.
Interesting.
And that was a job they turned around in a month, and it was in New Jersey. So
Yeah.
it was like a big project. We had to send 5 installers?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Walls are easier because number one, they're flat, right? Number two, they're indoors. So you don't have the weather elements that you deal with trucks and cars. And in most cases, the folks who are hiring us to do wall graphics, they have their design in mind for what they want. They know what they want. It's in an office. We'll help them. We'll obviously help them if they need us. But in most cases, the whole process is just a little bit cleaner with walls than it is with trucks or cars.
Now, do you guys mostly work on site? Like they bring the vehicles to you guys and then you guys do all the work, or do you go to the customer and do it there? Like what does that normally look like?
We very much prefer to have it at our shop. We've got a big, well-lit, climate-controlled, clean facility, which is huge. But there's obviously a lot of scenarios where they just can't. It's not feasible for them to bring the vehicle to us. Metro was one of those examples. But there's a lot of customers like that we need to go to their place. So,
well, luckily Metro has big warehouses where all the buses can be pulled into, and you can take care of them that way.
Yeah, absolutely. There's challenges that come with that the garage isn't well lit. It's usually cold.
Dirty.
All these, it's dirty.
You get
All
dust
these are all factors.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of cases like that we go to their place. Yeah.
So say I'm a small business owner and I'm trying to figure out and like maybe like you, Adam, I'm no like Photoshop genius. I don't know how to do design, but I know that my vehicle needs something because of the work that I do. What is the process you normally take somebody through when they come to you and say, I need something, but I need help? How does that work?
I usually recommend, I usually try to get people to come into the shop to bring their vehicle. Some people don't. I always say, hey, we can either talk through this on the phone, or if you have the time, I would love for you to come out and sit down with one of our designers and talk through what it is that you're looking for. Sit down in the conference room, and we have 3 full-time designers who are really talented. We'll bring one of them in. You can sit down and talk through exactly what it is you're looking for. That way our designer can print the template of your vehicle, or if it's a, like Adam said, we have access to, the data, several databases, so we can, access the templates. And if not, if it's a unique vehicle, then we can photo and measure the vehicle on site. And then that way they can sit down with the designer and kind of mock up exactly what it is that they're thinking. And then from that point, we put an order into our project management system, which we'll let Mike talk to you about here in a minute, which we're completely overhauling and coming out with a new project management system here shortly. But we put an order into our project management system, and then that paperwork, we print out the paperwork. The paperwork goes to our designers. The designers come up with a design proof, goes to us. We then email the design proof to the customer with an estimate based on the materials and the install time. And then once the customer approves the design, it goes back to the designer. The designer prints it. It goes to the production team. The production team gets it ready for install. And then it goes to the install garage. Right. Then the install.
Yeah, that's it. The key,
It's a big process.
It is. There's a lot of steps.
I'm simplifying it.
Yeah, the initial design discussion is critical. And like Krista said, we really prefer to do that in person because that happens all the time, Brian. Like you said, like they'll come to us and say, well, I have a truck and I want to wrap it, but I don't know what I want on it. I just want it to look cool. It's like, okay. Well, what you think looks cool and what we think looks cool might not be the same thing. So that initial discussion, what do you want your wrap to say? What are you trying to announce to the world about your company? And that's how we start. What are your colors? What's your logo? Your branding? All that stuff is important too. But what are you trying to say to the world is critical for our guys, because that just gives them some creative direction.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so critical that we have talented designers on staff that know how to sort of take their creative ideas and also convert that into a sort of sales pitch for your vehicle, so to speak.
Yeah, I always hear just in my head Jason saying, like, what is the one or two things that you want this vehicle to say? Because, most customers will say, well, we want it to have this and that and this, and also include that and this.
Yeah, they just want a million different
and from our perspective, we're going, like, this thing's going to be going at 50 miles an hour. When somebody sees it, they're going to see maybe one thing on it.
Yep.
And what is that one thing you want? So condensing down helping them condense down like their message, figure out what is that message? How do we get that across? And sometimes there are multiple iterations. Like we'll show them our first, idea, and it will not even be close to what they want. And so we'll have to come up with a couple designs. And that's just part of the process, is just sort of working through. And, once you kind of get in the ballpark, then you're making fine detail adjustments. But it can take, sometimes 3, 4, 5 iterations of something before it's an approved proof and we can actually print it. But I think the big point is that they are happy with it at the end of the day. And it's something that is communicating their message. And like, ultimately it's an advertising tool. So like our goal is like, is this effective?
Yeah.
Right. Is it, yes, we could slap a million things on this and it would have everything that you wanted, but is that going to be as effective as us just drilling it down to one or two things and making that big, Yeah. So I think that's I think art really is one of the harder parts of the whole process, just because it's so subjective. It's so creative. What I think looks awesome, our customer might hate,
Yeah. Vice versa.
So it's very much a balance of like, hey, can we get what they want to get across and make them happy at the end of the day? And it's always a bit of a seesaw kind of situation, but like
always.
But we've got a lot of happy customers, so we must be doing something right.
Yeah. Well, so full transparency to everyone that's listening, I used to work for an organization that had a wrap from you guys, and it was awesome too because it was a Jeep Renegade. So it's not a car that is often wrapped from at least our perspective.
True.
And it was fun that we would sometimes get phone calls the day like that we had been out driving, and we knew that we saw your car along the road, and we looked up and like, this is great. Like, and I personally think that this is a super valuable thing. And that's why I was actually really excited when Mike, you reached out originally to come on the show, because I really do see the value that you guys have in this space. And for someone to do this well is a lot of hard work. I went up to a local trade school in the area, and they have a class teaching kids how to do vehicle wraps. And it was interesting to watch because it's not an easy process. They were struggling through it. And for you guys to be able to do it the right way and to be able to handle things the size of buses and semis, like that's incredible to me. So I guess I really have two main questions left because we're running out of time already. This has moved so fast. But first one is, this is a little bit micro, but there is a whole subculture of the world right now that hates printers. Specifically the ones you have at home, like the ones that are now like doing things like subscription ink services and doing these like weird things where it's like the ink itself costs more than the printer. Like, is this something that you guys run into in this large format space, or is it way more tailored to your guys' business and a lot easier to handle?
Do we run into people who hate printing?
Well, I'm more curious of like, do you guys run into the problem of printer ink being more expensive than liquid gold, it feels like sometimes?
I think we buy a lot more than the average household. So I think we're getting a pretty good price.
You gotta call Lori and ask her. I don't know.
Yeah.
We've got a really good office manager who's one of the people who's been with us since the very beginning, and she runs a tight ship. She takes care of all.
Yeah, she does all the ordering of all the materials, and she's really, really diligent with the price comparing with our vendors. Yeah. But I mean, obviously the ink is a huge cost, and it's not going down, right? Just nothing is. But the ink, and now we have 6, and we're about to have 7 printers, big printers. Well, the edges aren't huge, but so obviously ink is a big line item for us. It's an expense, but no, the cost of the printer itself and the cost of the film is really the biggest. In terms of raw materials, is the biggest cost. For sure.
Now, I'm going to take this as an opportunity to shamelessly promote our new flatbed printer we're getting on Monday because right now when we produce signage, we have to basically take a piece of flat substrate, a piece of acrylic or polymetal or something, and we have to print to vinyl, let that off gas for a day before we laminate it, and then it has to get stuck to that sign, and that's how we put a graphic currently on it. A flatbed UV printer, you can basically take that same board and throw it on the printer, and it can print right to it, and it is done right there. So it allows you to not only do it faster, takes a lot of steps out of the production process, but it's also significantly cheaper because there's a whole piece of material you don't have to use that vinyl. You're just cost of ink, and the cost of that ink is cheaper. So we're going to be rolling that out on Monday here, and that's going to allow us to produce a lot of different types of signage, ADA signage, raised print signage, Braille print signage.
Oh, cool.
And so
so it's built more for signage style stuff. That's not really for like your vehicle stuff.
Yeah,
that you guys do.
For flat substrate, it's actually signage is one of the fastest growing product segments for us. So and it's something that we're hoping to even sell more of because we're going to be able to be more competitive with this new piece of equipment. But with the other ink and costs and stuff, I mean that I think smaller shops probably have a harder time with the cost of those materials. I don't get too into this. This is more Adams type stuff, but because I'm in sales, I do see the cost of materials and stuff, and we get better pricing than most print shops because we're large.
Because of our volume.
Because we do a lot of volume, we're able to get better prices, and we can pass that better pricing on to our customers. So it allows us to be more competitive just by virtue of our size.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, then that was going to be my next question. Like, what's next? Where do you guys see yourself growing and going to as an organization? Because obviously, a little bit more into this, you said flatbed printing, that sort of thing. But I'm sure that you guys have bigger goals than that. Like, what does the next 10 years of Crux look like?
We've grown incrementally. Since we started, our revenues have continued to grow every year, which has been such a blessing, and we've continued to add more talent, more people. I think we're on a really good trajectory to continue along the path that we're currently on, and to do bigger fleets. I'd like to open up another shop at some point. A lot of our customers are north of the city. We do a ton of work for some Wilmington, a big customer in Wilmington. We have a lot in the Mason area. We're in Hebron, Kentucky, right by CVG. So to allow ourselves to better serve those customers, I think another location is going to be a big thing for us. There's so many different technologies in the printing world that we haven't even tapped into yet that we can, and the signage world too. Mike's been trying to get us to buy a metal bender so that we can create raceway signage,
channel letter bender.
Channel
It's
letter
cool.
bender. we don't do a lot. We do a little, but we don't do a lot of electrical signage, LED signage, and exterior backlit signage. Is an area for us that we could explore. That I think there's no reason that we couldn't get into that. We've already expanded our product offerings. We used to be just stickers, and we do like they've been saying, we do a lot of other kinds of signage now in addition to still doing the same stickers. Our customer base, we take care of them. Don't get me wrong, we absolutely do, and service is a huge thing for us. But our customers have been, so loyal, and have grown with us in a lot of respects. And so we have found that if we can offer more product offerings to our already existing customers, that's a huge opportunity for growth, and it's a lot easier than finding new customers, which we're still doing that as well. But being able to offer our existing customers just a buffet of different options in the large format printing and signage world is a way for us to continue to grow. So cool. I think we're looking into buying a building here in the next couple of years. We're looking into adding another, like I said, another facility, and then just continuing to grow sort of organically, incrementally. Here in Cincinnati, and continuing to branch out regionally as well. We have customers on a nationwide scale. We have a huge one in Chicago that we do, Magnuson that we do decals for, and
manufacturers are some of our biggest clients. Producing decals for their products, for their shops. Safety signage,
right? But I think, So, and I think there's just a huge opportunity for us to continue to add different types of customers like that if we can do a good job of making them aware that we do all this stuff.
Right.
That's been a challenge too, is, I didn't even know you guys did banners. I didn't know you guys did walls.
Yeah, we'll wrap their whole fleet, and then we'll find out they had some other stuff printed with something. We're like, they didn't know we did that.
Yeah.
So it is about that raising awareness amongst our current client base,
Yeah.
And that's on us.
That's on us.
100%.
So
then the last question I have, what is the weirdest thing you guys have either wrapped or printed on? What is the weirdest thing you've done? But I can hear individual answers. I'm curious. What do you think?
We wrapped a kitty car. I don't even know what it's called. They're like the little plastic cars that kids get in, and then you have to Fred
those first, the first step ones or what? Yeah,
we wrapped one of those for Dreamy Whip, who's now Dreamy's Ice Cream. They just rebranded. We do all their vehicles and signage and stuff. And they were doing a fundraiser for an employee had either a family member sick or they were sick, and they were trying to raise money for them. So they had us wrap this kitty car just like their ice cream truck, which was cool because we already had all the art and graphics. So we basically made like a mini version of their kitty truck. It was actually really difficult.
I bet
you would look at it and be like, "Oh, that's so small," and then
that's not a flat surface.
No,
that's a crazy texture
and that
surface.
material does not want to get stickers on it. It's like a weird plastic, but we did it, and it was cool, and I think it helped them out. So that was the weirdest thing I've been.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, the high energy plastic is not. It's not conducive to stickers.
No,
doesn't like it.
No.
We did. Remember when we did one of those? Is it a cranial helmet?
Yeah.
That was a weird one.
Wait, what is that? I don't know what that is.
You know, and some babies have like a flat head
Oh,
in the
yeah.
back. And it was early on when we weren't
Yeah.
saying no to anything yet.
It's like it's like wrapping a bowling ball. almost.
Yeah.
Right.
It's super difficult.
It was
Oh my
not-
gosh, yeah.
because it's just a round thing.
Yeah, the installers have to do like crazy stuff when they're trying to wrap on round things, like that VW Beetle we wrapped for ADM or ADX. We wrapped they had this 1979 Super Beetle that was a museum exhibit. It was
cool.
it was like retrofitted to look like a Hot Wheels car, so it had this big like ridiculous engine hanging out the back, and we had to replace the wrap on it. But it is like the fenders on it are like almost totally round, and they have to do like. It's crazy to watch the installers. They have to make all sorts of relief cuts and like stretch things.
Heating, stretching.
Heating and stretching
heat.
without like discoloring the graphic or making it like look warped. And
These
so
guys are talented.
it's
man.
like a really fine art. Like people,
Wow.
people
It is.
they get new guys in and they start training them, and they won't unleash them on a car by themselves or a vehicle by themselves for like a year sometimes.
Yeah.
because it takes
Whoa.
that many hours of just
Doing it.
until you can run with a project on your own. Yeah, very highly skilled.
Yeah.
Man. Well, this was a great conversation, guys. Thank you. Seriously.
Thank you.
Who wants to be on the spot and do the 30-second promo for you guys? That I got
Sales
it.
guy.
All right. So
I trust you.
your camera is the second one from the right there. Take a look right at that.
Second one from the I see.
There you
Okay.
go.
All right,
So
let me sit up straight.
give us the pitch. What do you guys do?
Right. Crux Roadboardz Graphics. We are a friendly local sign shop. We create vehicle wraps, signage, product decals. We do interior wall wraps, interior dimensional signage. We pretty much anything that you can stick a sticker on, we can create. And we can transform your space or your vehicle and help your business drum up more business.
I love it. That'll work. That'll work. Guys, seriously, thank you for taking the time to drive up here and have a conversation with me. This was really fun. I've learned a lot. I think our audience has learned a lot. So really appreciate having you.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
so much,
Appreciate
Brian.
your time.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.